Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Your Miami Heat, they lose for just the second time this season at the Kaseya Center. They fall to the Detroit Pistons by a count of 138 to 135. Miami Heat have their win streak snapped. They were in the midst of 6 straight wins on the season and had run their record to 7 over 500. That comes to an end tonight. The Pistons, who had their first 2 games skid, they come in tonight and they're able to win against Miami. 3rd game in 4 nights, 2nd night of a back-to-back. The Heat, who had 2 days off coming into this, got off to a pretty lethargic start to this game. It really felt like this is a weird game for me because it's like it was almost like 3 or 2.5 different games because it felt like early on pretty close back and forth, and then the Pistons would just go on a crazy run, and then you get to the second quarter and it's like, all right, the Heat, they come out, they start landing their own haymakers. They get on there. I think Pistons, I believe, ended the first quarter on a 13-0 run, and the Heat responded right at the start of the second quarter with a 12-0 run to get like right back in it. But then the Pistons, they would start to pull away, and then Miami would try and just keep it where it was at. But it was, it definitely felt like for the most part of tonight, Detroit just got the jump on Miami. It was a parade to the paint. And I don't know what the final numbers ended up being on paint points. Probably a little bit more. Not really. The Pistons outscored Miami in the paint tonight 76 to 54, which really was a tough look for Miami. It was a tough look for Miami. There was not a lot of resistance with anybody getting around there, getting what they wanted to. Mind you, this is also disappointing. A game where, yes, Miami did not have Jaime Jaquez Jr., but Detroit did not have their young sensation Jalen Duren in this game. Cade Cunningham obviously playing like an MVP candidate. But, Miami did, after a game, he was just absolutely throttling Miami. There was a fourth quarter, mostly courtesy of Davion Mitchell just being an absolute menace. And really in a place where some of those possessions could have been taken advantage of even more. I think he ripped it from Cade 3 times in the back half of the fourth quarter. And the fourth quarter really was where Miami found a lot of things. So, yeah, there's a lot to bite into with this one because it felt very much like the mood after this game was going to be if it kept going in the direction that it was going, Miami's getting trounced. A lot of offensive issues. Tyler Hero, really inefficient game. Norm Powell and him, can they work this thing together? Can they make it work? Is this a thing? And then that fourth quarter, thankfully, in a large part, really because of the defense of Davion Mitchell and just the absolute utter relentlessness that was Andrew Wiggins, it found like in those clutch moments where Miami was able to get it to like 5 points, 6 points, it allowed Tyler Hero and Norman Powell to kind of play in some important moments where they could just make basketball decisions. And it almost felt like excuse me, everybody just kind of being a little polite with Tyler being back. It almost was like there was no time to think for that. You just got to go get buckets. And that's where it started looking like Miami was itself again. So while I don't take any moral victories, because you obviously want to beat everybody, Detroit is a very, very good team. They have an absolute star in Cade. They had the Duncan Robinson dog factor today. Duncan Robinson, if you don't think that Duncan Robinson came into this game with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove, you're high as a kite, Yogi, because Duncan Robinson was not just coming into this game to shoot threes. He actually didn't like have the greatest downtown shooting night, but just like he came in with just a relentlessness today. 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. 7 of 14 from the field and even got to the free throw line. Like he was, and there were just moments where and he was going to play tough defense. He honestly, I mean, one of the sidebars of this is Nikola Jović, who, I mean, I don't even know what to say, but Duncan Robinson, whether it was Tyler, whether it was Nico, whoever he was on, Duncan Robinson was coming at it with a purpose today. There was at one point where the Heat were getting going on those back and forths, and he's making it even tough on like Pelle Larsson. And you're just like, whoa, dude. That was you can't tell me Duncan didn't come into this game. It's cool they gave him the tribute. We said coming into this game, it's like, look, it was kind of a mini slump for him. And so this was going to go one of two ways. It was either going to continue for the Heat or Duncan Robinson was going to get right. And, you know, there were a couple moments today where the one that really stood out is there was a missed 3 by Duncan Robinson over Kel'el Ware. And Paul Reed, the third string center, just like outmaneuvers Bam, gets another possession, and nobody is around to pick up Duncan Robinson, who gets to basically walk into a 3. And you're just like, come on, dude. That's just inexcusable. You can't have plays like that. You can't have those types of things happen. You know, and then it felt like Ron Holland kind of got into the mix there in the fourth quarter. Like, it really felt like Miami was down 20. You're just like, this is getting ugly. It was not looking great. And then all of a sudden that defense starting up with Andrew Wiggins, really. And Drew Smith had some good moments as well in the to kind of set the tone, which it's become what he really is. Andrew Wiggins then just like starts getting steals, back-to-back possessions to really get Miami back into it. Like at 14 points, Detroit calls timeout, and you're like, all right, do they have something here? And you know, you really felt like he had all of a sudden Andrew Wiggins really brought the most, I think, intensity out of anybody. And you always think of the calm demeanor, always even keeled. Now, like he really felt like where everybody really just followed Andrew Wiggins' lead of like, hey, kind of just sleepwalking through this game. And that's what it was really unfortunate with. And I think that Miami, you know, having this type of game where it felt very much like they were going to get embarrassed and humbled for the first time this season. And instead you're like, all right, maybe some things can start to click with this team with everybody back outside of Jaime, of course. But that Andrew Wiggins relentlessness and then Davion Mitchell, this is great, and it wasn't because he slowed down Cade Cunningham in a big, big way. He got a great steal, but the Heat couldn't convert on the fast break. That was where Pelle got snuffed out by Duncan Robinson. And you're just like, oh, that could have been a big one. And then Davion did it again, and it led to an Andrew Wiggins bucket. He got up to 31 points. Then they bring Hero back in. Norm Powell, he gets a bucket to get it to 8. We got 102 minutes left, and then Davion Mitchell steals it again, and he starts going for the layup, and he can't drain it. So you're just like, oh, that was tough. They get fouled on the other end. Thankfully, they missed both shots. That leads to a Tyler Hero 3. Hero makes it down 5. Then the Heat have an opportunity. Ausar Thompson and Bam Adebayo get tied up. They call it off of Bam, call the challenge. Spo successful yet again. He's the maestro now. And they end up fouling Norman Powell. He cuts it to 2. He hits all 3 free throws. Cade Cunningham with a silly foul, and you got to within 2. 131, 129. So a Hero. So that I think that was good stuff. Like Hero hit a 3, gave it to Norm. He gave it up to Norm, and Norm got fouled shooting the 3, brought to within 2. And yeah, you don't come up, end up getting the win. Jenkins ends up getting freed up because they sent a double team at Cade Cunningham, still trying to keep the pressure on him. And Jenkins just got like that freeway speed and Bam really couldn't do anything with him, and that was tough. But they go back 4. Bam's able to get the putback off a Norm miss, get back to 2, and then Cade Cunningham is able to get a bucket. He gets a nice little screen, scores it, puts it back up 4. Spo calls timeout. They give it to Norm to drive to the rim. He turns it over, and then the Heat are able to get it back. Hero's fouled, so then he gets to go to the free throw line. It's back to a 3-point deficit, and then unfortunately there was only 6 seconds left. Didn't work out for Miami there at the end, but all in all, that fourth quarter showed a lot of great stuff. I think it does show like Miami as this unit has to grow together and get better together. But yeah, there were things that today just like you were bothered by, and I do wonder because and we'll see what this ends up being. And I think what you're really going to have from the Heat is like, hey, our defense. There's going to be a lot of talk about the scoring. Eric Reed made this point today. I think the Heat he said 33-3 all time when scoring at least 130 points. So the Heat scored. The Heat finally had one of those big quarters with all these guys. But the catalyst for a lot of it was defense. It wasn't offense. And so I think that's going to be is like, hey, we can't lose sight of this. And like, look, the one thing that is also a point of Tyler Hero coming back is defensively, you have to cover for him. And you're not playing Pelle Larsson, who is a plus defender. You're not playing all 3 of these hounds, or with Tyler out there, you can't really play Kel'el and you can't play the double bigs. So, it's going to have some growing pains with it. And I think that the early goings of this game, you're going to have to wonder with Miami and all those swings, like with all of that pain stuff happening, and are you utilizing Bam the best? And are you taking away what really felt like was becoming a special thing, which was Kel'el Ware playing a ton, giving you a ton of rebounds. And I thought in his minutes today, like, I thought he was good on offense. I thought he was good with his offensive rebounding. There were a couple times I thought that he got caught flat-footed defensively, and I thought that could have been a lot better. So it wasn't like the most A+ game, and I wonder, do they go back to a world? It's really tough. It's a tough decision the Heat are in right now because it feels like their world is a best world where he plays a ton, and especially with Bam. And well, you're not benching Norm, you're not benching Hero, so then it comes down to Wiggins and Davion. They're both playing awesome too. So I don't know what the answer to that is. It's a conundrum. All in all, even with that fourth quarter, Detroit shot nearly 60% today. 59% from the field. Got off more attempts than you. And Miami ended up shooting a game where they weren't shooting well. They got to 50%. And their offensive numbers are going to look pretty decent. They shot 50%. They were, 14 of 29 from downtown, so nearly 50% there. And they got to the free throw line a ton. 40 free throws today, or 39 for Miami, which was a lot more than what Detroit brought to the table. But defensively, man, the paint resistance and the easy buckets and them getting to whatever, Tobias Harris getting into whatever he wanted to, Duncan Robinson, and also a little disappointing that you had the game that you had today from Bam, because Bam today was okay. He was good. He had a 15 and 10, but you have a game where no Jalen Duren. Did they take advantage of like getting at Isaiah Stewart, because a guy who got into a lot of foul trouble? He had 5 tonight, but like, were they aggressive enough going after him? Did they miss some opportunities there? Did he, I don't know. It just felt like a lot of, for the majority of this game, the Heat was just stuck in mud, and it does kind of feel like, all right, we're getting all ready and used to these new rotations. And then finally, when it was just hard-nosed basketball at the end from Wiggins and Davion, it was like, all right, doing basically what Detroit did. Like, there's a lot of, I think, similarities in that. Detroit really felt like they dictated their offense today off of playing more physical than Miami. I just felt like they had a little bit more of an edge in this game for the most part, and it took Miami a while to get in there. And so, and you wouldn't have thought that with, based on the schedule of where everything's at, but Detroit's been an awesome team this year. And Duncan Robinson, helped to give the Heat the business as much as Cade Cunningham did today. He was really, really impressive. Tobias Harris today. Tobias, I mean, Jimmy Butler's not on the team anymore, dude. You don't need to have revenge quite like this. And also, it should be pointed out, like, Detroit has, since I think the Bam Adebayo buzzer beater against them, Detroit is really, I mean, Cade Cunningham, even when Detroit wasn't good, was giving Miami work. And yeah, this team's had Miami's number. They just have. They've had Miami's number. They've all kind of been wacky games, but I thought for the most part, this was a 70, 5 to 80% Detroit domination with Miami finally showing life in the back half of that fourth quarter. And they almost did it. They almost pulled it off, but not quite enough. Man. All right. So let's get into this rotation because it's going to cross over with something really significant, which is, I talked a little bit about this last night because Nikola Jović had given some quotes to the Miami Herald about, yeah, I'm going to just chill and my opportunity's going to come. Duncan Robinson went through this and I'm going to bounce back. So like I'm all for confidence. I'm all for Nico feeling good about himself. I know he's a guy who can be very hard on himself and wears that a lot. He didn't look like an NBA player tonight. And this is, mind you, after we had the DNP coach's decision. So he's taken out of the rotation after missing a lot of time with the injuries, where he was already playing a little inconsistent before that because he was getting into a ton of foul trouble. And if you would have said, like, is that rookie Jovic out there playing like that, or is that fourth year in the association? Was at one point a starter for this team, though briefly. Who is playing basketball this poorly? And it's crazy. It's almost like I can't explain this because, like, look, I understand that I've driven, as I said last night, the Jovic hype train and certainly did a ton of stuff on him over the summer and followed his Serbian team. And, I really felt at the end in the middle of last year before he broke his hand, I thought he was playing the best basketball of his career. I think there was a reason why the Heat were invested in him and wanted to lock him up. I don't think this is the guy playing anything close to that guy's capability. This guy looks like a G leaguer. Like, he had a pass today in this game that should be a one-way ticket to Sioux Falls. And I know they can't do that to him, but he needs, like, something with the mental check, because this is one of those where it's not all physical. Like, he's playing almost short-circuited because he basically threw a ball. You remember the ball last year where Terry Rozier got back into a Heat game, right? Hadn't played a little bit. He comes back, and it was against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And this has become known as, like, the evidence, this video. Like, where people are still like, hey, is this guy really, like, is everything cool with how he operates as a basketball player? Because all the FBI stuff was happening, but you would have thought, like, this was ground zero for a man trying to throw a basketball game. Like, I'm not saying anything that was happening. I'm just saying it looked that bad of basketball. That's what Nico looked like tonight. That's how bad he was tonight. He looked like he was on the take bad tonight. Had 5 turnovers in 10 minutes. 5 turnovers in 10 minutes. That is abhorrent. And I don't know. I don't know what they do with that, because here's the thing with Jovic, and I mentioned this yesterday because it's really weird. It's almost like the Heat can't have a world where Nikola Jović and Jaime Jaquez are successful basketball players at the same time, because all of what felt like Jovic momentum has gone to Jaime. Last year, Jaime looked like a guy who didn't belong on an NBA court. Now Nico does. And look, you could say age. We could keep throwing age. Okay, agreed. He's a young basketball player. I'm not writing him off, but this is I cannot go by any longer and say this is not concerning. That he is so in his head and hard on himself and is trying to play it cool a little bit in the media, but this doesn't look like a guy very confident in his abilities right now. And, this wasn't a surprise. He knew he was getting this chance today. I said this last night that this could have been an opportunity, and I almost think you would be crazy to, you wouldn't look at this guy and say he should play above Keyshawn Johnson or Simone Fontecchio. So I think I've said everything there is to say there, but I certainly don't think this is fat cat syndrome because one, I don't even think he's made that money yet. I think that's next year's money. And two, this almost looks like is pressure of the organization believing in him, crushing his confidence a little bit. I don't know. He just doesn't look like, he doesn't look anywhere close to a guy who can help produce this team winning. And I would have never thought that coming into this year. I was loud wrong on that so far. So, yeah, that is concerning. That cannot be put any other way. Because, I know, John Crotty said that today, he's like, they missed Jaime. And it's like, they missed Jaime. No doubt. They missed Jaime. I mean, listen, if you have Jaime playing a regular game and Jovic doesn't play, he was minus 15 in 10 minutes, you would be in a spot where you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, anything's better than negative. So that would have been better. But look, this is a team that's won without Norm. They've won without Bam. They've won without Tiro, Wiggins. I can't give, Jaime was down there. They didn't have Jalen Duren, dude. Jalen Duren's playing like an all-star this year. So, yeah, they missed him. I'm not denying that. And really the only true bench production was, a spur from Drew offensively. Drew had a nice little spur there in the spur of the moment in the third quarter. And then, Kel'el was really good on putbacks today. But it felt like, 12-7 feels like a far cry from what we were getting. And that to me is the concern, right? It's like, it's great that he showed fight. I'm not calling this a hero has come back and the party's ended, because I don't think it's ended. You lost to a really good basketball team tonight and made a valiant effort at the end. But, Kel'el playing the way that he was for this team, it's just like, hey, is this a redundancy of the roles, and we're keeping something off of our team that seemed like it was moving in a direction of like, oh, this could make the difference of our season with winning the way that they did. And now it's like, well, you're limiting him to a 20-minute role, and he gives you 12-7, and maybe doesn't have that crazy emotion that he was playing with. So, look, I don't have the answer for that right now. Like, that to me is almost more of a, people talk about the Norm and Powell, the Norm and Powell, both of them. Norm and Hero is the thing, but Wiggins' defense really was the catalyst out of everything. But like, our Bam and Ware best utilized, and they make this team the most special when they play with each other and play together and make this team go forward in that direction. I don't know. This game, like, again, it was encouraging to end the way that it did, but it left a lot of questions. And I still think, like, I don't think any determinations can be made, because if the Heat would have continued to get the snot kicked out of them like they were in this game, I would have been like, all right, I could definitely sense there's some level. But the way that they came back, I was almost like, all right, I think there could be things worked out here. But it's still not a perfect fit yet, because I still think we got to do something with playing your freakazoid center needs to play more. And we can't just go in a world where the Heat aren't getting him out there, because the kid looks special, and you don't want to limit special to just a little over 20 minutes a night. So, I don't know. There's a lot to chew on from this performance. But ultimately, Duncan Robinson got his revenge against the Heat.